All right, so here's your homework to do with right triangle trigonometry and understanding the 6 trig ratios. So it says find the exact values of the trig functions for theta and know our definitions. So we're going to practice that together as we do this. So you're given a right triangle. It's the classic 3, 4, 5. And can you use that to fill out the ratios? So for sine theta, it is, and we'll just write it out again, opposite over hypotenuse. So what side is opposite of the angle? And then the hypotenuse. Cosecant's the reciprocal, so I can just write down the reciprocal. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so the one beside the angle is 3 over 5. And then again, the reciprocal is secant. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. And again, we often use the acronym SOHCAHTOA to try to help us remember the definition. So SOHCAHTOA. So again, opposite over adjacent, it's 4/3, and then the reciprocal for cotangent. So again, it's nice when you know all 3 sides. Sometimes you don't. So, and if you end up with a square root in the denominator, you have to rationalize it. Sine, opposite. Here's it. Circle it if you have to. So opposite over hypotenuse. Recognize that that's H, O, and A. That might help too, just to label the triangle to make sure you understand. Opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. And again, you could reduce it down to 1/2. The reciprocal of 1 over 2 is just 2. Cosine, so that would be adjacent over, that's 7 root 3, over 14. Again, to reduce it down would be just root 3 over 2. The reciprocal would be 2 over root 3, but we need to rationalize it. So we're going to multiply top and bottom times root 3 to get 2 root 3 over 3. Tangent, opposite over adjacent. Again, the 7's divide out, but we can't have a root 3 in the bottom, so we're going to multiply top and bottom by root 3 to get root 3 over 3. Now the reciprocal, I'm going to go 2 back to 1 over root 3 and then do the reciprocal. So I have root 3 to make it easy. Number 3. Hey, we're going to have to find the missing side here for number 3. So I can label that x. Recognize it's the hypotenuse. So it's 4 squared plus 4 squared equals x squared. So that's what I'm looking for. So that's 16 plus 16. That's 32. And then the square root of 32, if I reduce it down, which would be helpful, is 16 times 2. So that's 4 root 2. That's what x equals. So I'm going to put that right here. 4 root 2. Understand that 4 is opposite, the other 4 is adjacent, and of course this is hypotenuse. All right, sine, opposite over hypotenuse. So that's 4 over 4 root 2. So the 4's divide out, and then rationalize it, and you get root 2 over 2. And again, to rationalize the denominator, take the square root, top and bottom. So root 2 times root 2, and 1 times root 2. All right, the reciprocal, root 2 over 1 is root 2. Cosine, this is going to be the exact same answer because it's an isosceles triangle. So this is root 2 over 2, and this is root 2. Tangent, 4 divided by 4 is 1, and the reciprocal of 1 is 1. All right, number 4. Find the missing side. So if you don't know all sides, you have to do that first. Make sure you understand the hypotenuse. So if that's the hypotenuse, 34 squared needs to be isolated. A and B, the order doesn't matter. So then you solve it. So that's 900. And what's that? 34 squared. I don't know. $1156. Subtract 900. 256. Square root of 256 is 16. So opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. That's helpful to label it for some. So then opposite over hypotenuse would be 30 over 34. 2 goes into both evenly, so that's 15 over 17. The reciprocal would be 17 over 15. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Reduce it down. Again, that would be 8 over 15. 8 over 17, I mean. It's a 34. 16 over 34. So that would be 8 over 17, and then the reciprocal. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, that would be 30 over 34. So that's 15. That would be 30 over 16. So 30 over 16 would be 15 over 8, and then the reciprocal. All right, number 5. So we need to find the missing side, label it. So order doesn't matter, but x and 5 and root 30 needs to be isolated. So this is 25, root 30 squared is 30, subtract 25, take the square root, and this missing side is root 5. So this is opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So that is root 5 over root 30. That is the same as 1 over root 6, because 5 goes into 36 times, and then if you rationalize it, it's root 6 over 6. The reciprocal of that is just root 6. Cosine is going to be 5 over root 30. I have to multiply top and bottom by root 30. So we have 5 root 30 over 30, and then 5 goes into 36 times. So it's root 30 over 6. The reciprocal would be root 30 over 5 from the beginning. That'd be the easiest. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's root 5 over 5. That's perfect. When I do the reciprocal, I'm going to have to do rationalize the denominator. So it's 5 root 5 over 5. And then the 5's divide out, and it's just root 5. All right, again, number 6. Label it. So this is 11 squared plus 60 squared equals x squared. 121, 3,600. Put it together, 3,721. The square root of that, believe it or not, it's a perfect square, 61 times 61. So this is 61, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. So let's go. No square roots to worry about. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and then the reciprocal. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse and the reciprocal. Tangent is opposite over adjacent and the reciprocal. The more you practice, the more intuitive and the better you'll remember the definitions. Number 7. Use the trig function value of theta to find the exact values of the remaining functions. So you're given a ratio and you need to use that to find the other one. So we're going to draw our own right triangle. Right here. All I say is you should be consistent in how you draw it and where you put theta. It doesn't actually matter how, in terms of it needs to be a right triangle. Theta needs to be in one of the corners, but be consistent, and then you won't make a silly mistake. So cosine, by definition, is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, and then find the missing side, which is opposite. So 60 squared plus x squared equals 61 squared. Use your calculator. So that's 3,600. I don't know, 61 times 61. That's 3,000. Did we just do this one? And then subtract, and you get 121. Take the square root, and that's 11. So nice. I think we just did that triplet. And then label it. So we have opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. To make sure you understand, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and then the reciprocal. Cosine is adjacent. We already knew it, so it's already up there. 60 over 61, and the reciprocal. And then tangent, opposite over adjacent, and the reciprocal. All right, number 8, draw. Again, I'm going to be consistent how I draw it. You can draw it your way consistently. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so it's hypotenuse over opposite. So the hypotenuse is 7. What you don't see is a 1 in the denominator, and the opposite side is 1. We need to solve for the missing side, so that's what we'll do right now. So subtract 1, take the square root, and the square root of 48 is 16 times 3, or 4 root 3. So there's my missing side. So this is adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse. Just to label it so you get it. That's not a 10, by the way, so maybe I should go like parentheses around it. So opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. So sine is 1 over 7, which is the reciprocal. We already know that's 7. Cosine is 4 root 3 over 7. Now the reciprocal, I'm going to have to multiply by root 3, top and bottom. So that's 7 root 3. Remember how to multiply this. Root 3 times root 3 is 3, and 3 times 4 is 12, and it's done. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Again, multiplied by root 3. That's root 3 over 12. And then the reciprocal would just be 4 root 3 over 1, or 4 root 3. Number 9. Root 2 over 2. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite side and the hypotenuse, we need to solve for this. So that's x squared plus root 2 squared is equal to 2 squared. So that's x squared plus 2 equals 4. Subtract, and it actually equals the same as what it was. Root 2 is the other side. It's isosceles. So we have opposite and adjacent and hypotenuse. And now use those sides to find the ratio. So sine theta. So opposite over opposite, which is root 2 over, and we already got that one, right? And then the reciprocal of that would be 2 over root 2. And then when you multiply top and bottom by root 2, you get root 2 over 2, so it all simplifies to root 2. Cosine is also root 2 over 2, which means this is also root 2. Tangent, when you go root 2 divided by root 2, is 1, and then the reciprocal of 1 is 1. Tangent is 2/3 theta. So that's opposite over adjacent. So opposite and adjacent, and I'm looking for this side. So 2 squared plus 3 squared equals x squared. That's 4 plus 9. That's 13. And that's the square root of 13. So I can label it hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. And then use those numbers. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse multiplied by root 13 top and bottom. Cosecant is just root 13 over 2. Cosine is 3 over root 13 multiplied by root 13 top and bottom. Secant is the reciprocal of that. That's root 13 over 3. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. We knew that already. And then the reciprocal is cotangent. All right, number 11. Label the triangle. Understand your definition. So secant's the reciprocal of cosine. So it is hypotenuse over adjacent. Should I do the reciprocal? So the hypotenuse is root 35, and the adjacent side is 5. I need to find x. So that's 5 squared plus x squared equals root 35 squared. So it's 25 and 35. Subtract and you get 10. Take the square root, and it's root 10. So opposite over hypotenuse, root 10 over root 35, multiply, reduce it down, root 35. This, if you reduce it down, divide by 5 top and bottom, you would get root 2 over root 7. And then if you multiply by root 7 top and bottom, you can see root 14 over 7. Cosecant's the reciprocal of that. So that would be root 7 over root 2. So that when you multiply by root 2, it would be root 14 over 2. Cosine is 5 over root 35. So that becomes 5 root 35 over 35, which is root 35 over 7, because 5 goes into 35 7 times. Secant is the reciprocal of that, root 35 over 5, and you can let that go. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. That's root 10 over 5. The reciprocal is 5 over root 10, and then multiply by root 10 top and bottom and reduce it down, and you get root 10 over 2. All right, one more like this. Draw a triangle. Label it. So cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, so it's adjacent. So root 11 and 7, and then this is what I'm looking for. So root 11 squared plus 7 squared is equal to x squared. It's 11 plus 49, that's 60. And the square root of 60 will be now 4, right? So it's 4 times 15, 2 root 15. And now label it. So we have, they didn't label the other side anyways. This is opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse multiplied by root 15. Now root 15 times root 15 is 15 times 2 is 30. So that's where that comes from. Cosecant's the reciprocal, so it's 2 root 15 over 7, done. Cosine is adjacent, so that's root 11 over 2 root 15. Multiply by root 15, and you get square root of 165. So 11 times 15, that's what you get. And then root 15 times root 15 is the 15 times 2 is 30. So that's where that comes from. The reciprocal would be 2 root 15 over root 11. Same work, this time times root 11. So this becomes 2 root 165, and then root 11, and root 11 is 11. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, again multiplied by root 11 top and bottom, and then this is just root 11 over 7, which is what the question was. All right, good work. All right, next, give the exact value of each function. Cosine 60, tangent 45, cosecant 45, and cotangent 30. So each of these are special right triangles. So if I want to do this with special right triangles, I need to know my special right triangles, right, in terms of doing it. So let's make sure we know what they are so that when we do it. So I'm going to draw it somewhere here. Here, I'll draw it right here. So we have one special right triangle that's isosceles. That's root 2, root 2. Root 2, root 2, silliness. 1, 1, root 2. That's the ratio. And the angles are 45 and 45. And the other is 30, 40, 60, and 45, and 90. There it is, 30, 60, and 90. And that's 1, 2, and root 3. So these we need to have memorized. And so 1, 1, and root 2, I don't think is too bad. Count 1, 2, 3, square root maybe as a way to remember it. So cosine 60 for that question. What's adjacent over hypotenuse? And it's 1/2. Tangent 45. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. Either 45 will give you the answer. 1 over 1, which is 1. Cosecant. Cosecant 45. So cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. So it's root 2 over 1, which is just root 2. And then cotangent 30. So 30, cotangent is adjacent over opposite, so it's root 3 over 1, or just root 3. All right, good job doing your homework. This work at the very end is what's going to really help us with what's called the unit circle and to memorize it. So this is essential that we know our special right triangles. So good job doing your homework. GMath, over and out.